Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another GhiBliCast. This is the first one where we're going to be talking about a non-Hayao Miyazaki Ghibli film. Did you even know such a thing existed?
I bet a lot of
Today,
people found out when Takahata-san passed away recently.
Yeah. So Devu, you're joining me.
That is right. My fiance, I gotta remember the right level of relationship there. When she moved to Missouri for me briefly, with me, and she saw the Fireflies there, she was all like, "What are those? What are these glowy things in the sky?" 'Cause she lives in like a desertous part of Oregon, and I'm like, "They're fireflies." And I guess despite all their appearances in media, she just never like quite grasped that they're real.
I see. Well, there's a whole grave of them in this movie, as it would happen.
Allegedly.
Hypocrite is also joining us.
Hello,
as
yes.
usual.
I had never seen this movie, and it's fucking. I love it. This is a good thing.
I guess we know right off the bat. We didn't have any guests this time, I guess. Nobody wanted to feel fucking terrible all day. So, this movie is Grave of the Fireflies, directed by Isao Takahata, the co-founder of Ghibli with Hayao Miyazaki and the producer guy whose name I don't remember. He's the sort of... Miyazaki is basically an understudy of Isao Takahata, in a way. Like, they both came from Toei Studio. Miyazaki got his start working on Takahata films. And, I mean, the reason that I didn't want to do... People keep posting in the comments, like, why don't you talk about Lupin the Third Castle of Cagliostro? Why don't you talk about Future Boy Conan, because those are previous Hayao Miyazaki films before Ghibli. Well, if we did that, we'd have to talk about all the Isao Takahata films, and he had plenty of them before Ghibli. And then we'd also have to talk about every other film that any of the other directors at Ghibli ever did, right. Which is a lot, because there's a lot of directors. It's not just Miyazaki.
And I would be perfectly fine going on that journey, but you don't have enough patience.
No, I didn't want to have to go through the extended version. I just figured we'll keep it to Ghibli, you know? Like, everyone knows that Ghibli movies are, like, basically all classics with the exception of Tales from the Earthsea.
Yeah, the Cars 2 of Ghibli.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, that doesn't mean anything anymore, because Pixar has plenty of bad movies now, but...
True.
So... Grave of the Fireflies is very well known for being sad and depressing. It was probably the first World War II anime it was the first one I had heard of. I mean, Barefoot Gen is like also a famous and important piece of media
that predates by a handful of years.
Yeah, and I think almost a decade, and I think it. Well, actually, it would only be
83 to 88. Wait.
Yeah, okay, so like half a decade, something like that.
Yeah.
Barefoot Gen looks way older though,
I know.
And this movie looks like it came from the time it came from, whereas Barefoot Gen looks old even for its time.
Right.
I've never seen a Ghibli movie in like a realistic style, even though the style is the same, but like the subject matter is like very much.
There's no magic shit.
There's no magic shit. There's no kid-friendly appeal. It is just a war movie that looks like a Ghibli movie, and it was like, whoa. I never heard of this.
I think that the Ghibli aesthetic in this movie, it put me off at first because I was like, I don't feel like this communicates how terrifying this is supposed to be. And again, having watched Barefoot Gen like a few months back, where that movie is just about showing you how terrifying war is in as like clear terms as possible.
I think the Ghibli style actually does help to show how fucking scary it is, because it has that the cartooniness, and then suddenly, the mother is like shown in very graphic detail being burned all over, and you see maggots.
You only
on
see
her.
some
It's
of her.
Whoa.
To bring up Barefoot Gen again, you see people who are burned all over and are not in bandages a lot.
Yeah.
So to give the one sentence review I had for this movie when I came away from it was, I liked Barefoot Gen a lot more. But I think there's obviously a lot to this that rewatch, people. Come on. There's always more to it than just superficial plot similarities. I like the other one more, you know.
Well, yeah, and this movie, to just finalize that comparison so that we're not making it through the whole goddamn
I'm going to be
video,
making it a lot, TBH.
Well,
I don't want to, but I have to.
I'll just get through my statements about it. That whereas I think Barefoot Gen used the incredibly violent and striking imagery to make you like, fuck, war is really honestly terrifying. This movie, I think, because it has a more accessible aesthetic, I think it was able to reach a bigger audience because of it. Barefoot Gen is an ugly and scary to look at movie, and like if you want people to actually get, you know, this whole, like, I was afraid to watch that movie because I knew it was fucking terrifying, you know.
Yeah.
But this movie is more presented as like poignant and dramatic.
It suckers you into being like, oh yeah, war does suck. Man,
Yeah.
Japanese weren't all bad, you know, like stuff like that.
Not all of them.
Not all of them. Some of them just trying to live, trying to eat vegetables.
Rice. And, yeah.
But I do think the scary moments end up being effective because of the way that the film escalates tension, where in the early scenes, like, the firebombing is happening, and I thought it was weird that it was, like, broad daylight and very Ghibli-esque colors, but, like, when you think about how the characters are handling the situation, they... like, the main character is like, oh, don't worry about it. You know, he's like, oh, this isn't a big deal. Like, mom's in the shelter. Like, it can take a 50 megaton bomb. Like, just keep running. Just don't think about anything that's going on. And, like, he's just, like, overwhelmingly optimistic. And it's really not until, like, when the mom actually dies that, like, we have the dark clouds of smoke covering the city. And now it actually is a scary scene. And you're like, oh, shit. Now so, like, whereas Barefoot Gen is just, like, war went, like, that movie went the route of, like, everything's normal and happy, and then war happens and everything is a terrifying shit pile. In this movie, it's like war is happening the whole time, and we just kind of, like, touch on how shit it is here and there in between trying to put it out of mind.
Like war films that are like entirely like, war is bad. Don't you see all this blood? Aren't you scared about it? Don't you want to stop war? Like, I feel like stuff like that is like overindulged in, like the goriness and the terror and the scary stuff. The fact that we were saying before we started recording, there isn't a nuke in this. This is like this is at the end of like the Second World War with Japan. And they don't use the nuke to try and sell the idea that war is bad, because
it's just showing a different. It's just showing a different side of what happened to Japanese people.
It's just
than what Barefoot Gen
I don't
is
watch
showing,
I don't watch a lot of war films, but this is the sort of war film I would like more of.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, this movie what it does open with is, I believe, the Yokohama carpet bombings, which were like, before we dropped the nuke, like, we had already done this incredibly heinous act of, like, firebombing like 11,000 people to death in Yokohama.
That's what I believe the official statement of the U.S. government maintains as, is that basically, like, the level of bombs we were dropping was already killing more people in a significantly less, like, terrifying way, but more people were dead, right? And our last-ditch effort, if the bombs didn't turn them into surrender, was to, like, go on shore and just start stabbing and shooting, which, you know, makes you keel over with a nice little puddle of blood rather than all your skin melting off, which I guess is a much, like, less scary way to die, but we would still kill a lot more people. Come on, guys, seriously, like, what the heck?
I feel like this movie is almost more message than movie to me.
Yeah.
Because this movie reminded me of, have either of you seen Pink Floyd's The Wall?
I have not.
I haven't seen the movie, but I've listened to the album a lot.
You're supposed to be our resident dad rock expert. You're supposed to have watched that, man.
Well, The Wall is a badass movie, but the thing about the movie is that it's pretty much like every image is symbolism. And, like, The Wall takes it to a even further degree than this movie because it's much more, like, abstract and goes into just trippy sequences. But, like, in this movie, despite the fact that it is realistic and it does have sort of, like, a semi-historical tone to it, like, the dialogue and the images that are chosen to focus on, like, always have something to say, basically. Like, there's always something to unpack about what somebody, like, you know, screams in the background or something like that. And, like, it always is telling you something about the time period and what it meant to be there, you know? And so I not to say that I don't think that these characters are fleshed out or realized, but, like, this movie is not enjoyable. It's not intended to be enjoyable. You can't really watch it as, like, a movie where you're like, oh, I love these characters and want to see them succeed or whatever. Like, no, it's just it's a movie about misery.
You're not even allowed to have hope because you know they die right at the beginning.
Right. And I think the way that I love that they die at the beginning, because it tells us that we already know these kids will die. We're just gonna see how it happens.
But they do hold out a little bit of suspense because you don't like know if that's the girl's ashes. Like it's not even like clear. So like you might think, well, maybe the girl doesn't die. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that what the movie is trying to say at each stage is, like, right from the beginning, everything that happens to these kids is horrible. But it's interesting that at the beginning, when the firebombing is happening, the kids aren't that concerned about it, and the scene isn't that scary, and, like, it's not until, like, the mom dies that things get a little hopeless, but then they move to a new place, and, like, things seem hopeful again. So the movie's constantly challenging you, like, well, you see this terrible atrocity the kids went through? Yeah, this isn't what did them in.
Right.
Like, that's what the movie is constantly telling you, is like, yeah, that was pretty fucked, right? Well, guess what? That's not what killed them.
It sort of made it more sad, the way it ended, because the fact that they did get away from it, and they kind of started to feel happy again. They had happy moments.
Right.
And like, life goes on. People, all the adults in the just say, we got to go to work, got to do the thing, war, whatever. We're gonna, we're losing. Like it's all very casual and like, yeah, just pull up by your bootstraps and just get to work, and deal with all this terrible stuff that's happening. And it's like it's a weird, like, it frames it in a way that you could imagine yourself. Like if suddenly I was being like carpet bombed, or there was this war going on, and I had to move house to somewhere else, and I was like, I mean, should I keep making YouTube videos? I don't know. I mean, we're at war. This is not a movie right now. I'm in real life. I'm being bombed, and I'm like, but like there are times of like peace, and I'm like, I don't know. Should I just try and keep going the normal way? Like, it's just sort of a weird feeling it exudes in me.
There's a great scene where there's a scene where they're at the beach, and I do think the scene of them just like playing at the beach went on a little long for my taste. There's moments in this movie where I kind of got bored when it was just like them hanging out for like a long time. Because I didn't really care about these characters. So, like, as much as I appreciated that they were like, oh, this is them having their fun time, this is, like, what's going on to juxtapose against the suffering, like, I didn't feel like I wanted to just spend time with these two for elongated periods necessarily, but maybe that's just me being a cynical ass.
No, I love... I mean, the boy is just sort of like a normal boy, but it was, like, the characters themselves... It's not so much who they are, but like how they deal with what they have to deal with.
Yeah.
It's like the interesting situation that they constantly are like struggling with. And I was rooting for them the whole time, even though I knew the future.
Yeah. This movie's an anti-spiral. It just constantly like gives you little bits of hope and then takes it away.
True. Very true. Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of moments where you think, oh, is this where the girl dies? She's about to... Oh, is it now? Oh, it's not quite now.
Yeah.
Okay, phew.
That's the thing. No one really, like, dies climactically. Like, when the mother dies, I wasn't, like, 100% sure because, like, it was done with so little fanfare. I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure the mom's dead right now, right? But, like, he doesn't have a cry moment, and there's not, like, a dramatic musical sting, if you know what I mean. And same thing with the girl. She literally is, like, the communication of her death is... And then she never woke up. By the way, I actually watched this subbed because, like, immediately hearing them talk in English was just, like, disconnecting me from the fact that this is World War II Japan. It was
I felt the same way.
It was too Japan for me, so I had to watch it subbed. So, like, certain things are going to be different from my perception, of course.
Yeah, I watched it subbed as well, but mostly because the Kiss Anime dub version is, like, low quality, like, 240p, like, terrible audio.
Lol.
And I moved to the sub, but then it made a lot of sense. Like, of course, it would not really work if these Japanese people in Japan, canonically, were talking English.
Yeah. I felt the same way.
The goddamn Americans are going to be coming anytime soon.
I think it's very important to the movie that there's that scene with the policeman who's actually, like, nice to the kid.
Yeah.
Because, like, if not for stuff like that, this movie would feel, like, unbelievably grimdark. Because...
Yeah.
Basically what the plot of this movie is that we watch these two kids meticulously tumble through every single layer of the social safety net until they hit the bottom.
Right.
It's just like and it's interesting, we never really see much of their home life. We only really hear about it, like, because the movie just opens with, like, their parents are gone, like, I guess it opens with probably the last moment they see their mom, like alive, and then.
Well.
Yeah, but we learn about their past throughout the movie, and it's implied that they were like very privileged kids. Like their dad was in the military,
That explains
and
a lot. Yeah.
yeah, and the military had lots of money, and this is why the aunt is such a bitch to them, because she drops all these things like, oh, those military people like getting all that free, like, oh, of course you guys are rich because you have this military background, but like because of the fact that their dad dies fighting and their mom dies in the bombing, and none of that shit lasts. Like all they had is material items that are now up in smoke, and like the aunt is still taking it out on these two kids like they are some kind of, privileged kids, but like at this point they're not. That safety net of their parents is gone. The safety net of their extended family leaves. The safety net of society at all helping them leaves until they're just dead kids that no one cares about.
So yeah, this gets into the thing that I thought was the most interesting about this movie, as distinct from Barefoot again. I think I'm not going to bring up that one as much as I thought I was, but yeah. So the most interesting thing about this movie, but is also something that makes me kind of disconnect from it and not like feel that invested or relatable to it, is like the level of just shittiness and entitlement on the part of like every member of this family, both the aunt, right? Both the aunt, who's a huge bitch, and whose pronunciation of aunt and aunt I tend to sine wave between, and the boy. And I don't know how many people walk away from the movie with the same attitude towards him that I did, but the boy kind of really fucked up horribly, and the fact that the girl died is completely his fucking fault.
He didn't, do what the farmer said and just suck up his pride and go back.
That scene with the farmer was there to make it pretty clear, like, this really isn't quite a story about the best that our culture has to offer, the best that the human spirit and ingenuity has to offer being smitten away. It's more like just sort of this entire fucking family is now all dead. They're all dead now because they didn't have the survival tactics intact.
I actually think that what it's meant to suggest is that these two were the best and the brightest, but of an identity that died in this moment. That, like, what I think this movie is meant to paint these two characters as, and there's a reason that they are dressed the way they are as ghosts. Like, when their ghosts go on, like, the boy's wearing the dad's military uniform, the girl is, like, dressed in, like, this wifely attire, and, like, there's all these scenes that represent, like, the loss of elements of the identity they were supposed to have, like, what they were supposed to grow up to be, what they were promised. And for this generation, regardless of if you actually did die in the streets, this identity died in this moment. Like,
oh, you mean like the end of the war, like being like a military man was just
exactly
sort of gone.
The whole identity that the kid was raised with, that like he was supposed to inherit, and that his sister was supposed to inherit, of being like the housewife to someone like that, that whole existence is gone.
Part of the ideology of Japan doing this war in the first place was based on this idea that they are the greatest race in the world and can never be defeated, which you do see reflected. Like I like that the movie like has the balls to like have the relatable fucking innocent child character be like, how could Japan possibly lose? This makes no fucking sense. We were supposed to win. We were destined to win. And yeah, your whole image of it is just completely shattered. I think, imagine the equivalent of just like if America got like fucking land invaded by Russia and China within our lifetimes. It's probably like that level of shock times 3.
I think this movie did something really genius by holding off on a character detail of the main character until way later, which is, like, from the beginning, we can already infer that he's, like, a military guy, because, A, he's wearing a military outfit from the start of the movie, and also he keeps, like, saying things about, like, the shelters, and he, like, knows jargon and stuff. But it's not until at the point that we as viewers completely understand that Japan was like overwhelmed in this war, that they lost, that these children are dying, that this identity is dead, that we actually see the flashback to the kid at his dad's like big ceremony thing, and like we understand why he believed in Japanese power, because they present it as like this big important event and everyone's at attention, there's a huge crowd, this giant ship, all these men saluting, they look brave and strong and proud, but like this was a lie, because Japan's military was not powerful enough to win this war, and it was just like pure egotism, that just pummeled them into this. And in the end, everyone in the country had to swallow that afterwards.
As soon as I saw your notes, and the first one was about the death of this identity, I pretty much like thought that single-handedly is gonna give this movie an extra like 1.5 on my rating of it, because I really didn't get that out of it. But now that I'm looking back, I think it was probably pretty explicit. Like in the opening scene, when the people are like, "Oh geez, dead shitty kid on the street. This is such an embarrassment. The Americans are gonna be here any day now. We need to look our best. To see it. We don't want them to see these shitty stragglers. We're trying to put on our best image for like whatever the fuck we're gonna turn into as a country now."
Exactly, and that's what happened after World War II. And I think that this movie, it does not present this angle because it's sort of concentrated, but I really feel like this movie shows us how Japan became an artistic nation following World War II, because like the identity of the youth up until this point of like, you know, that they were going to grow up to be these strapping soldiers, these brave countrymen who are, and like this is a noble identity, you know, even if it was foolhardy and the government was wrong, this is a noble thing to want to be that this kid wants. So we can admire that quality, but like that identity did die at the end of the war, and like that generation now lost has to create something for them to have as an identity. And like this is when comics explode, this is when culture explodes in Japan. Tezuka.
Right, yeah. 1947, that was the release of Shin Takurajima, Tezuka's big breakout manga, and basically the start of what is manga today. So like pretty soon after the war.
They gave people culture so that there was something they could cling to in this world where like their whole identity just evaporated overnight and there was nothing they could do about it.
I think like, yeah, another thing about that, playing into that, it was like right at the end where some other privileged Japanese kids come home after like being out in the country, and they're like, I missed this view, and they put on a record, which is like, I think, an American invention. It seems sort of like that.
It's like a Western invention that's very expensive because we're in the 40s, and like they're in like a beautiful summer home that just happens to be overlooking the lake where our characters have been the entire movie. I thought that was cheesy as fuck.
Yeah.
Like.
But like that made it a lot clearer to me because I didn't get any of the stuff before that. But I was thinking, there's symbolism there. I'm just
the last shot of the movie is Ghost Boy and Ghost Girl looking over a big glowing city that wouldn't have existed in the fucking 40s of Japan. You know what I'm talking
I didn't
about?
even fucking think about that.
I will send you the screenshot right now because like that right there basically makes it 100% like clear that like your take is pretty accurate to the movie's actual intentions.
Oh
They're
yeah, I
literally
mean, I'm gonna lay a bunch of them on you.
They literally look at the future of Japan at the end of the movie, being like, "Yep, this is what comes after us."
Let me just go down the laundry list of the symbolism for this. So first of all, early in the movie, when everything's falling apart, there's a guy standing in front of a burning building, screaming, "Long live the Emperor!" as it like crumbles around him. There's the scene where the little girl has the kimonos taken away by the aunt to be sold off. And I think that this scene is a linchpin moment between how the main character ends up fucking up and not understanding his sister. Because when the mom has like just died and the ring is given, he gives the ring to the little sister. She's just like, "Oh, if mom doesn't need this anymore, can I take it?" And the kid's like, "You should put that away." So already it's clear that this little girl doesn't really like understand the idea of her mom suffering and maybe isn't as connected to her as this boy is, who's like clinging to her memory even though he knows she's dead. Then we get to the kimono scene, and I think that this creates a misunderstanding where the boy thinks that the girl is emotional over the kimonos because she misses her mother. But it's really that the kimonos represent her future, her identity. Yeah. It's an heirloom. And like heirlooms for women are meant to, and I only really learned about this recently because May was telling me about it, because she has all this random fine china that she's gotten as hand-me-downs from her grandma. And she was telling me that like owning those kinds of heirlooms is meant to be a sort of windfall for women. Like if your marriage doesn't work out, you have these things you can sell later. And also that if you hand them down to your children, then it's like you're passing on these worthwhile items. Like you're passing on that windfall to them.
It's like some sort of like procreative pawn system or something. Like that's an interesting like sort of like putting in a deposit in your virility.
Yeah, but like the kimonos represent like, you know, they're her heirlooms, they're the image of her future, that's what she was supposed to grow up into, and the aunt takes it away and sells it. She sells their identity away for food.
She's
because,
so upset about
you know,
it that she cries in the exact same way 3.5 times. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah.
YMS would have pointed it out, but she
Yeah,
goes,
Using the
definitely
same
would've-
clip.
I
Yeah.
was just watching the World War Z review where he pointed that out about a
yeah.
little girl
She
saying
goes,
the same thing.
and I thought, lol. I had to switch over to the other dubs just to hear it. And yeah, she's not played by a girl that actual age in either of the dubs. Probably so that they because I assume fucking Milo and Otis style, the fucking Japanese had to actually like torment a little girl to get those clips. They only wanted to get one and just loop it a couple of times.
They just showed her the movie and made her cry.
Yeah.
The funny thing about the acting in this movie, I think that the reason they wouldn't have gone with real little kids is Barefoot Gen. Like, in a lot of ways, this movie feels almost like a response to Barefoot Gen because of the fact that while that movie does an amazing job of showing the atrocities of war realistically, it is not a very functional movie. Like, it's ugly. A lot of it is just Gen running around narrating what's happening.
Yeah,
like,
I think it's amazing.
It's cheesy. It's like,
Yeah.
I like it too because I like that it is so harsh, and like that's what I think is a true vision of the war, and it's made by a guy who fucking lived through
Right.
it.
I don't
so
think
I
it's like there's one
not that
true vision of the
Takahata
war.
didn't.
It's just that your experience of the war is gonna be a lot different if you were in fucking Hiroshima. It's
Yeah.
just showing you. It's showing you two actual stories of the war, which the
Right.
the way you describe Fireflies is it's pretty accurate. It's like things are shitty and they slowly get shittier and shittier and shittier, and if you die, then that's it. Barefoot Gen shows the other version, which is things are pretty shitty the whole time. Like, we keep building up Barefoot Gen as being, like, all about showing the atrocities of war. It also spends the first half of its runtime just getting you acclimated to the characters and just really sucking
But it's
you
in a very
Titanic
different
style.
way because this movie I feel like is in the action the whole way through.
Right.
It's just that the nature
Yeah.
of the action shifts, whereas
Right,
Barefoot
yeah.
Gen is like,
It goes from like 6 to 12 all at once on the horror scale. And again, that's a real fucking story. So I think it's fair to have different movies with different tones.
oh yeah, of course. But I do think that what this movie was going for, though, in terms of like being in comparison to Gen, is like this one has they ratcheted up the art quality all the way. Like this is the one that feels like a complete film. It
Yeah.
feels like a well-paced, well-executed, like, and again, the fact that it's more inviting does allow like a broader audience to appreciate
Which
it,
is important.
you know?
I didn't feel like a lot of the movie was like that visually impressive to me. It was just sort of like, good, well done,
The
good
fucking
animation.
backgrounds in the parts where they are like living at the lake, and it would just show like the scenic like lake shots, just like these paintings that were like, I want that on my wall. Like,
Yeah, there was a
that
lot
was
of
the most impressive.
there's a
thing
lot
to
of
me.
like really nice realism, but also watercolory sort of things.
Yeah.
I like. I mean, it feels like Ghibli default good.
Yeah,
that
there
way.
we fucking go. Ghibli default good. That's exactly what I was looking for. That's the perfect
Yeah,
phrase.
I can see what you mean by that. So some more stuff said about the identity thing. There was the parallel images. So at the beginning of the movie, we've got the ghosts, and the boy and the girl are standing hand in hand, and they're in the full attire. Later in the movie, of course, there is the exact same image when they approach the farmer, but now they're in tattered fucking shit clothes. Then not long after that, we have the scene of the little girl. There's just like kind of a weird montage photo shoot of sorts of her like posing in different like clothes, and we see her like basically wearing a soldier uniform made out of like just crap that was laying around, and like she's giving a salute, and that's the image that's like the very like, here's what was really going on. Like this is the naivety of the kids that we let die.
It's the fucking
war,
montage of her after she dies. And it's like you get like a weird like flashback, but more like a flash sideways of like just shit you didn't see, like just to make you extra nostalgic for her now that she's dead.
Yeah.
That moment where you see her like sweeping up, and she has her doll tied to her back in the same way that she was always tied to her brother's back.
Oh shit, yeah.
And I was just like, she may have done that earlier in the film, but I noticed it then. I was just like, oh. Like, it's cute. It's innocent. It's just like she does that because her brother does it, not because she understands why he does it necessarily. It's cute. They're sad.
The last moment that really hard plays into this theme was when the boy finds out that they lost the war, and it seems like no one gives a fuck at all. That
like everyone else has already gotten over the shock, or like most of the adults were like watching the news and being like, yeah, our incredibly stupid government is gonna have to fucking wake up eventually. Holy shit. Whereas this kid, being the son of a Navyman, was probably just fed the fucking narrative completely clean, and he just had no reason to question it until this very moment.
And those guys who, like, break the news to him, they very much resemble, like, the image of the intelligentsia or, like, engineers that was shown in The Wind Rises. Like, and in that movie, all the characters felt the same way about the war, where all of them were just like, yeah, we're losing, that's obvious. Like, they just wanted to work here so they could make planes, but, like, they knew that they were fighting a losing battle and just sending people to die, and that's, like, what the main character, like, finally kind of hits him at the end and makes him quit, you know?
I think the aunt was like that as well. She just sort of like, yeah, just going to war.
Right.
Lol. Rations. Yeah. Stupid.
The aunt. She was dumb.
No, I mean, she said stupid. Like, she was like, fucking wars, god damn it, not again.
Let's talk about the fucking aunt, because I noticed that every single one of us in our notes wrote, aunt is a cunt.
That's beautiful. Well, let's go into it. What do you guys have to say?
Some variation of that, yeah.
Well, I think, like, initially the aunt obviously was, like, she's just, obligated to bring these kids in. She doesn't like the fact that, her sister maybe, like, married into a powerful rich guy, like, fucking spoiled brats. Fucking don't even help when there's a fire coming on, and they just go and hide in their cave, fuck them. But, like, there was that very slight, like, almost, like, human, when she was, like, kind of worried in her face before she walked back into her house after she saw that they were leaving. And I was like, you know what? I guess it would be a kind of a hassle to have, like, 2 kids from a privileged family that aren't helping around the house in a wartime when you don't have any food. So I kind of understand. But, she's still a bitch.
Yeah, she's super judgmental about it. Watching the scenes with her finally got me the words I was looking for to describe what I am now going to call provider's entitlement, which I think is sort of one of the fatal flaws in the way that the traditional installation package of the nuclear family, and also a lot to do with, like, what props up the idea of like rich people having shitloads of money.
Can I summarize this concept in a sentence?
What?
Your dad's chair.
Your dad's chair?
Yeah, you know how everyone's dad has their chair that you're not.
No, my dad has a really easily agitated back, so he always switches from chair to chair. He doesn't actually give a shit. But I get the concept though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I remember a post that you wrote back in like 2012, and at the time I thought no, but now I'm like yeah, which was when a kid comes home from school and a dad comes home from work, which one is more worn out and stressed out? Because school and work are both shitty. And why does the dad always get the priority of the TV, right? And
because
I'm like,
he's the one who makes the money and paid for the TV.
Right, but at the same time, it's like,
But is this actually healthier for him than it is for the
child?
child?
I mean, if I could get paid to go to school, I fucking would.
Obviously.
At the time.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, like, working at a job is vastly more satisfying than going to school because you know you're going to make money.
Right.
So
on one hand, I want to say, so I want to say to the aunt, like, dude, this is like what, an 11-year-old and a 4-year-old? What the fuck are you expecting them to contribute? Like, they can't serve their country. They're fucking not even, like, their children. What's wrong with you, right?
So I think that this aunt, and I've seen this movie several times over the years. This is the first time I watched it and really enjoyed it. Like, even though I have a lot of problems with it in the fact that I do think it's, like, more message than movie and I don't really connect with the characters that strongly, I finally got what the message of the movie was this time. And, like, with the aunt, what really struck me in her introductory scene is that, like, the kid tells her that his mom is dead, her sister, and she has no reaction whatsoever at first. And then after she like thinks about it for a second, she's like, "Oh, there's a lot that has to be done," and like gets up like to her sister's death is just a pain in the ass that has incited a list of things she now has to do to act like a normal human. You know, like a list of things that she now has to participate in that she has no desire to do. She is a sociopath. Like, this is just a textbook sociopath.
Like, when those scenes were happening, I mean, there's also a time when he's fucking buying the shit to cremate his sister. The guy's like, all right, yep, that's for the cremation. Whew, sure is a lovely day despite it all.
Yeah,
and
that
I'm
fucking guy.
assuming it's more of like the Shikata Ganai kicking in up to 11 because this is wartime. I don't know if it's necessarily sociopathy.
I mean, with that guy, I could see it because that guy would have been burning people all day.
I mean,
you know, like
it's true, but he said it to a young boy who's probably who are you going to be burning other than like a sibling?
I mean,
it just seems like a bit of a. You shouldn't do that. He's a little boy.
Yeah.
You can't say, you're gonna burn your dead sister. Cool. Yeah, lovely day though. Lovely day for a fucking cremation. See you, kid.
So there's a moment in this movie where the aunt sells the kid's kimono.
Right, by the way, I want to point out that this is the flaw of the fucking provider's entitlement mentality, right? Is that there's always a million loopholes you're not fucking considering. People talk about privilege, but like privilege comes in a million forms and you can never accurately calculate like who's the one who really tried and pick themselves up their bootstraps, right? And in this instance, did she not consider the fact that they got like a pretty decent, sizable bag of rice thanks to their mom's kimono? Does that credit not get inherited to them, right?
Right. Well, that's the thing. And the evil that this aunt commits is that she attempts to objectify human potential. Like, her kids are more important because they're her kids. These kids don't matter. And, like, they aren't contributing, they aren't, like... But what she doesn't appreciate is that these kids are insanely good-natured at their core. Like, we're gonna watch the older brother fuck up real bad, but, like, if he had been given the opportunity to grow up and be the man he was meant to be, he would have probably been a better member of society than this aunt and her fucking kids.
Yeah,
you know?
the reason why I didn't, like, get super sad and I felt a little disconnected is that, one, dude... Ask him to fucking wash the dishes, right? He can definitely wash dishes, but then also he never offers to wash the dishes. He never just does it. I mean, right?
I don't know if that's something that would be done in a Japanese household. Like I feel as though the aunt would have been like, if he had said that, she would have said, "What are you trying to take my job away from me?" Because like
back over the border.
That's the way that these aunts are presented in anime, because this is a common trope, is always like anything you say to them is going to be turned into you are insulting them. And I actually know some people who are kind of like that.
Which is another part of the provider entitlement, is that like they get into this idea that you're shit and you can't pull your own weight. And any attempts to pull your own weight is met with a litany of, oh, well, you're shit, so you can't do it. So how dare you even try, right?
I don't want you to pull your own weight, otherwise how am I supposed to yell at you?
Right.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's a very abusive relationship. But, like, yeah. Okay, bringing up the Barefoot Gen comparison again, right? So, like, you know, him and his mom, only surviving members of his family. They're in their little shack they made out of a little bit of blown-away tin that they stapled together. They have the skulls of the rest of their family that burned at a fire on a little shelf that they made. The mom just puts the skulls on a shelf, right? Just nice and normal, right? And, she has a new baby boy, a girl, who the boy had to deliver. And they're like, okay, well, shit, the baby needs to grow because she's a baby. We need food, but we're all out of food. What the fuck do we do, right? So what the boy does, and his new little friend sidekick, is they go out and get a job. They, like, wave signs around saying, we'll work for food until they get a job. Basically, like, cleaning up some guy's shit. And then they buy milk, but then the baby dies. The point is, that boy tries his damnedest and actually does the right thing. And that's why I feel more sad for him, because, Yeah,
Barefoot Gen has much better characters that, like, in terms of being, like
strong characters. Like.
Well, they feel more human, I think, because of the fact that the characters in this movie, I couldn't connect with the way that they were so optimistic throughout this that it was like, and I mean, I am a very optimistic person. I am someone who likes to see it as let's go with the flow, let's not stop at any point. But like the fact that the kid like after his mom dies,
That's
is
what
like
I- yeah.
stone cold
Well,
trying to
all
just
right.
Right.
The
Yeah.
thing about that, because I don't relate to that either, but the thing I thought was like that's just what the Japanese like mantra was at the time. Like,
Yeah,
yes,
I mean,
you
that's
should.
the
It doesn't
idea.
matter if your mother dies, you have to keep fighting the war because we're the coolest.
Yeah, I want like there to be. I would connect a little bit more if there was like a quick cry, a quick super sad moment, right?
I just think that this movie it romanticizes the characters in order to heighten the message. That
Right.
like in order for us to really have it pounded into our heads that like this was the Japanese mentality of the time, like the characters have to be as over the top, stridently like optimistic as possible. And granted, I do think it's like there's a very powerful scene when the little girl is crying and the boy is just like doing twirls on the monkey bars, and it like just stays on that image for a while, and it's just madness. That is the portrait of madness.
Yeah, what I thought he was trying to do was like say, "Hey, look at me! I'm trying to cheer you up by doing funny twirls," but he was just like working out or something. I didn't understand. It was very strange.
The way I understood it was that he's trying to tell the girl like you're not allowed to be sad. Like, she's trying to be sad about what's going on, and he's like, he basically tells her, like, you're not allowed to be sad. We have to keep our heads up because we have to keep pushing on in order to survive. And, like, the girl's just kind of crying, and he sort of, like, mentally checks out. It's like he's looking at her, and he doesn't know what to say other than what he's just said, because the only way he knows how to deal with the situation is to try to move past it. So, like, he's trying to just go, hey, look at this, I'm distracted, I'm doing something completely different, look at this other thing I'm doing, and like the girl's not having it, but since he doesn't know anything else to do, he just keeps spinning on the fucking monkey bars like a psychopath, and I love that.
It was a very strange scene. I remember it very vividly. The fact that she doesn't turn around is like,
yeah. And I have it written down that the characters, like, his overwhelming optimism is, like, the number one thing that gets him through, but, like, the girl doesn't inherently have that. He is just beating it into her over the course of the movie. He's just, like, at every turn telling her, like, don't feel the way you're feeling. Feel this other way, that is helpful to the narrative we're trying to, that I'm trying to spin of our situation, that we could get out of this by our own bootstraps when we really just need to buckle down and just let the aunt fucking beat on us for a while,
Yeah, but once you created that, once you shared with me that thematic through line of basically like this is the dwindling of an age, it's like Dark Souls, then I guess it all makes sense to me now. So now I guess I actually like it a lot more.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the what at this point is a catchphrase of Maze, which is only a country that's been hit by a nuclear bomb could come up with this. And I mean, in this case, it's pretty obviously that's the case. But, that's Dark Souls as well. You need to have seen the utter hopeless breakdown of all social safety nets and, like, the just total... like, you have it in your head that you can do it, but, like, you can't at all,
Right.
A subtle sub-theme of this movie that's tied into that identity is that these characters will satisfy themselves with less and less and less.
That's real powerful the way it's done, yeah.
Yeah, the moment when the little girl's crying because she thinks that they're out of candy.
Oh, yeah.
So he, like, hits the thing, and there's 3 in there as well as a couple little shards, and, like, she stares at it long and hard. Yeah.
And she goes for the shards and keeps because she's learning how to ration things. It's like, whoa, she's growing up even just a little bit.
And I think what they showed in that moment is that in spite of the fact that they are in such a shitty situation, it is so much more empowering to get to make decisions than it is to have decisions made for you. Like, even though, like, the aunt, like, rationed them rice. Like, here's how much you get to eat. And they thought, this is shit. But when he gives the girl all her candy and she herself makes the decision, I'm not going to eat the big pieces, I'm going to eat the little shards and save this. Like, that choice is empowering and gives them, like, a sense of satisfaction again. And this is what leads to them leaving. This is what leads to them moving out because they see that satisfaction.
Feeling of independence, yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to say regarding the whole like sad and not sad dichotomy, like It would have been really annoying if them moving into that little hut was like those little holes that shelter was like, oh, this sucks. I really liked how it was like, it is kind of cool in its own way that you're living in like a
Yes.
hole with no door right next to a pond. It's actually it's kind of cool.
It's very cool, and that's why I like to describe this as like them living the ultimate libertarian lifestyle. Because
Yeah.
basically he's just dropped off the grid and gone to have like a place where they have total control over everything. It's unregulated. They make their own shit. They, the boy clearly has like skills as like an engine, like not an engineer, but like he can build a whole fucking campsite by himself, like
Yeah.
out of a box of scraps, So like if you have the skills to live off the land, then you can do that in even in Japanese society, like this life that they're escaping to would be possible ordinarily, but because it's World War II and like even farmers don't have enough to eat, like they can't actually live this way. And like it's just like, again, the system is broken down too far. There is no safety net, not even living off the land, because the land is irradiated and fucked,
In this podcast, this is like the slowest, most trepidatious podcast I think I've ever been in, because we're trying to make things slower and cleaner and not cut off one another's point and not jump away from a point before the other person's done. But now I
Yeah.
think we're all like looking around thinking, okay, when are we done talking about the themes and when can we talk about the technical shit again?
Oh, well, I mean, I've just got almost all my notes are about themes. I have like almost no technical notes. So if you want to jump us into some
Well,
technical stuff,
here's
you
the
go
thing
ahead.
about something that may or may not be a theme, but like the whole grave of the Fireflies thing, like when the Fireflies die and they die real quick, and then she makes
Yeah.
the grave.
Yeah.
I noticed. I mean, beyond like theming and stuff and symbology, because that's obvious. It's like, isn't it sad things die? It sure is. I noticed that.
It really is like that. Like, I really think that the idea of the Fireflies as symbolism is the most like sledgehammer to the face, obvious camp. Like, she literally just like crushes a firefly, and he's like, "Wow, life sure can be extinguished when you don't really think about the amount of pressure you're putting down on something." And she's like, "Yeah, sure can be." It's like, what? Like, okay, just state the intent of the movie, why don't you? And then, like, when she's throwing them all into the grave, and it, like, literally flashes back to the mass graves. Like, do you get it? Do you see it?
Yeah, and it's like, why do they have to die so soon after he was just talking about their mother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I see what they're doing
did
there.
love the way that like it's communicated to the audience, that it was communicated to the girl that her mom had died, that she just sort of brings it up. Oh yeah, the Fireflies. Oh, hold on, this is some symbolism. The Fireflies are in a grave just like mommy is. Symbolism.
But I noticed, like, as a thing that I just was amused by, is that when the ghost kids, in the red ghost sort of world are walking around, there are fireflies there as well. So, like, the fireflies are also ghosts.
Oh, Firefly ghosts. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, heaven is full of bugs. Don't go to heaven.
Heaven is just the world from Nazca.
Yep.
There's just so many bugs, because bugs die so much more than humans do.
Oh shit, that's right. Damn it, this is making too much sense.
Yeah. So, to go back to the aunt for a little bit, I think it's interesting. I had written down that she represents the worst of communism, and apparently you wrote down that she represents the worst of capitalism.
Well,
so,
more just like I think just this idea that like if you don't contribute, then like you're not being useful, like you don't matter, like you should go hungry and die, right? Like
What is this note that says gay at the top?
Oh, that was the first note, just because I thought it was kind of gay the way he wrote, the way the movie starts with, "That was the day I died," which
Oh,
I
I
guess,
see.
I think it probably sounds better in Japanese. Like the way you talk about death is different when the word for death is shin, what's the word for death?
Shinde.
Shinde.
Sheen is generally it. Yeah.
That word sounds a lot more like smooth, whereas the word die sounds a lot more like percussive. So like it translates weirdly sometimes. Sometimes talks about death don't just sound weird when you translate it.
The word shine in Japanese, like, which means die, like or I'm going to kill you, but like it's a command to die.
Right.
is used more like edgy than like in America it'd be like die, and then it's
Yeah.
like shine, you know,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
ooh, slick, cool. So anyway, I do about those ghosts. I like the way that they're used as like a scene transition throughout the movie. Like basically, we end one scene, the ghosts are like watching it happen, and they just kind of walk over like on a cliffside that somehow overlooks each part of the story, I guess.
I didn't really get what the ghosts were doing, because we didn't cut back to them enough times for me to understand that. Were they following them, or were they just, like, remembering things?
I think they were just kind of overlooking their life story, or like what had led to their death, like as they progressed to the other, you know.
Why did they need to get on the Spirited Away train?
It's the Night on the Galactic Railroad train.
Yeah.
Or the Galaxy
right.
Express 39 train, possibly.
Yeah, that one.
It's just a lot of space trains in anime, but
that should be one of your raps,
there's also
space trains in anime.
Didn't you literally work on a show about the ghost train, the train that goes to heaven or whatever?
Oh yeah, that never ended up being a thing. But I was at some point working on like making a real show about that.
Because I think the idea of like a ghost train is something that like just exists in various cultures around the world.
I mean, that one I think was very heavily inspired from Spirited Away anyway.
Well, I mean, this movie came out way before Spirited Away.
No, I mean the thing I was working on.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that the reason they exist is just that Isao Takahata really likes framing devices in his movies, and as we get into his other ones, you'll see that, especially Only Yesterday, because, like, in that movie, it's based on a manga that was just, like, a bunch of stories from a girl's youth. In the movie, they built, like, an adult version of her remembering all the stories in order to be a framing device for the random stories. So, like...
I wonder what
It's
Takahata
just a
thought about
Takahata
James
thing.
Cameron's Titanic, because it does a very similar thing to how Grave of the Fireflies works, I think, where it just starts by saying, "Yep, things went to shit. Let's find out how."
Yeah, I have no idea. I've never seen
You
Titanic.
know, I just realized the guy at the beginning said, "Yep, this is where I died." and that's like the first narration. The second narration is, and she never woke up after that. Like that, he doesn't say a single thing throughout the whole movie, and I forgot that he was like a narrator.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
true. Yeah.
Okay, just to skip to the ending real quick, I do not like the way that they handled the little girl dying. I
Why
thought
not?
it was fucking lame, because I felt that by having her go insane at the end, like she's like loopy and delirious, she gets to say a bunch of cute shit, and then the camera just kind of like, he just says, oh, and then she died, and then we never see her again. And it's like, I really felt like it undercut like how heavy the death was to like so blatantly try to make it so she could die cute, you know?
Oh, that like they didn't show any of her actually having diarrhea.
She didn't like die like saying, brother, I'm cold, I don't want to die. She died saying like,
Yeah.
look at all these pretty rocks I got you, I made you a meal, like I
Yeah.
love you, brother. And then
True.
you know,
Barefoot in comparison again, when basically most of the family is all dying under a burning building, and there's one specific beam of the house that's like pinned them all down, and they can't exactly get it off them because it's on fire. The little boy is just screaming, "It's hot! It's hot! It burns! I'm in pain!"
I cried watching that scene in
And the
Barefoot
mother,
Gen.
at one point, she's trying to lift it up, being like literally 9 months, 20 days pregnant, and the little boy is trying to lift it up. And the mother is just screaming, and then she literally screams, "I hate this pillar." She specifies. No one specifies that shit, but that movie does. But I find like weirdly, like uncomfortably brutal. Because literally the reason
Because it's more real.
Literally,
than,
the
like,
reason the mother doesn't die... Well, the boy was just not even in the neighborhood, but the mother doesn't die because she was in a different part of the house to the effect that the pillar did not land on her.
That's fucking nuts. Yeah.
I should
that
mention I
movie's
haven't
great.
seen this other film. Should I watch
Right.
it?
Yeah, I think you'd like it. I
Yeah.
think you would enjoy it because it's fucking horrifying. It's just basically it's a movie about like the idyllic Japanese family, and then the bomb drops and it is literal hell, and that's the rest of the movie. So yeah, it's fucking crazy. To talk about, yeah, we were gonna talk about the aunt and the communism or possibly capitalism thing.
Yeah.
Like the way I saw her was that these kids got like this rice that they were able to buy was on the merits of these kids. However, she sees it as like, oh, well, all of the wealth is just to be distributed through the system. Like, whoever needs it is who gets it, and whoever is working is who gets it, and you guys won't get it because you're not, like, you're not recognized in this system, but, like, she acts as though, you know, it's getting just, like, parsed throughout, like, I guess it's a weird combination of both ideologies, because she's not, I guess, like, ideally in communism, or, I don't know, in communism, don't you only eat if you do work, or...
No, to each according to his need. Or is that socialism? I don't know which the fuck one is which, man.
I'm not really sure, but I guess in this case, it's interesting because she simultaneously takes away, like, the wealth these kids earned to distribute it through the system, but even though these kids are the ones most in need, she has twisted the logic to say that they don't need it because of the fact that they don't work, even though they are starving, you know? And, like, when you see her daughter come in to pick up the lunch, like, the 4 rice balls that she's made her daughter is pudgy. Like, she doesn't need this much food. Her daughter's overeating. But these kids are starving, you know?
Oh shit, yeah, I didn't notice that. They kind of smooth out the lines on her fucking line art just a little bit. Just a tad that you know she's well fed. Fuck, man.
Exactly. So, like, this aunt is just... And, like, all of them just are taking this as a matter of course because they're just participating in the system as it is understood. They don't give a fuck. Like, the aunt is the one who manages the house. She decides who eats how much. They're just gonna listen to what she says, you know? And, like, it's... Throughout this whole movie, like, everyone... Yeah, it is kind of that shikata ganai, what can I do? Like, oh, this is how the system works, so I guess you're just fucked, you know? Like, oh, there is no food. Like, he goes to the doctor, and the doctor's like, she's just malnourished. You just have to feed her. And he's like, how am I supposed to do that? And the doctor's like, I don't fucking know. And it's just like, well, there you go. You're fucked. There's nothing left. So, in a way, I think that this movie presents all these different, like, political ideologies and systems that all crumble. And, like, it's just ultimately that they all fail because humans are bad. Like, it's not that communism theoretically failed the kids. It's that this aunt, who represents the problems with it, that she is making those decisions about, like, you know, it should be that these kids get to eat as well, because not only was it on their merit, but, like, they're the most in need. But, like, because she's the one making the decisions, it's, you know...
But she didn't kick them out.
SOL.
They've kicked them fucking themselves out.
And that's also true.
And for those who don't intend to watch the movie after this or haven't seen it before, if you want to refer to, like, how did the kid fuck up in the way that we keep referring to, he was explicitly told by, like, a farmer dude, go back to your aunt, swallow your pride, let her continue to shit on you for being useless, because she was still giving you some food and a place to live outside of, like, fucking marshy, dirty buggy zones. So he has too much pride to just, like, deal with that, and yet he does end up resorting to stealing food a lot.
It was really weird how he, like, even when it got to such a dangerous, like, the little girl is going to die, like, he didn't bring her back. Like, he wasn't desperate enough to go back, even at that point.
Wasn't fucking thinking. As stoic as he is, and as much as he keeps himself together, like, emotionally, he, like, really did not plan.
I think that the moment that his dad dies, he goes insane.
I mean,
basically.
Yeah,
he finds out his dad's dead.
Yeah, I mean, his sister dies, like, in the very next scene. So yeah, that's basically when he gives up.
Yeah, he's taken all the money out of the bank.
Oh, right, that's
to get her like the final meal that she doesn't even eat.
Right, that's fucking right. He saves up like a bunch of money, like 3,000 yen, and doesn't spend it until, like, the day that she's dead. And it's like, dude, like...
Well, it's not... I think it's his mum's money or something. He takes it out of the bank, and that's how he's around people who know.
Right. But the thing is, you think he should have taken out that money a little bit sooner and then got some food sooner when she was literally dying of malnutrition, but he just had this idea that you have to save it, right? So, he was really taught... It seems like he was very much being raised to be a fucking privileged boy who joins the military and makes, like, executive decisions, but not how to actually survive.
Yeah, well, I think that with this, I mean, there is no way for him to survive on his own. He should have gone back to the aunt, but, like, I understand the mentality that if you were in that situation where the aunt is barely letting them scrape by, then you idealistically can think, well, surely I could do better on my own. And for a while, they did. Like, they were happy in that place. They were eating, even if it was less, but like because they were making their own decisions, it was very satisfying. And like I think they just out of hubris, and I mean the girl is too young to really understand. She's just doing whatever her brother says. But like I think that when he had that taste of they were able to live here, he couldn't go back because he thought, oh well, it can be that good again. But like it never did get that good again, and everything dried up, and he should have listened to reason, you know.
Yeah.
I really love the scene where he comes into the house and the aunt is scraping like the fucking stuck rice to the bottom of the pan and eating it, and it looks really disgusting. And like the way
I do that. I do that with rice.
Yeah, but the way she does it looks disgusting.
Yeah, like I mean, it didn't look too bad, but like she was sort of like dangling it above her mouth. And then,
it was clear
pushing
that
it
she
in.
was kind of like doing this like as a quick thing she'd be ashamed of. I mean, she's hungry just like anybody else, but she's just like scraping it off, and like they animate it in a way to make it look gross so that in the next scene when the kids are like, you know, a second later when he's like, oh, that looked delicious, you're like, damn, you know, like that looked delicious to you, like that made you hungry watching that old skanky hoe like eat that gross fucking pan stuck rice.
Yeah.
You know, it had some impact for me.
Yeah, you know what? I'll take a themes break to talk about a bunch of my notes end up referring to just random details, and maybe this is Takahata's thing. I don't know. I'm pretty sure this is the first movie of his I've seen. The first one that I noticed was when he's looking for the doll, right? Like, way early in the movie, they're going to go to the shelter, and the girl's asking for her doll, and he runs back into the house, holding her on his back, looking for the doll, and there's just a little bit of like back and forth, like there it is, right? And
yeah, he follows her hand reaching for it. He notices.
You don't see that shit in even live action movies. You don't like go out of your way to like show the weird awkwardness in trying to like make a thing happen. In animation and film, live action, characters just sort of do stuff, and it's not usually interrupted much. Also, when he's giving the girl some candy, and like some of the candy is stuck to the bag, which like reminds you of how fucking hot it probably is, right? He has to like shake the bag to get a piece of candy off, which the hot thing, this isn't just like to make things feel more realistic in general. It can have big time atmosphere ramifications, because my favorite detail is how often the characters are scratching themselves from sheer discomfort, and I guess also like malnourishment spots on the part of the girl, right? You don't see that. Even in movies where characters are being gored and their spines are left in place or their faces are melted off, you don't see them sweating and like maybe like chafing and like itching and like and like feeling uncomfortable, because it's literally a worse experience for a viewer than anything else. It's like the most brutal thing the movie has. IMHO is them just itching themselves.
That's part of the reason why I think this movie is so effective, is because it does like the classic like Ghibli, a lot of detail on mundane things to get you immersed in the world that they're living in. And then also it's a terrible war movie with terrible things happening to these people. And it's like, oh no, it feels a bit too real for me.
It also just allows you to say more in the span of the film if you layer that shit. Where like, I'm thinking about like movies I've seen, like A Few Good Men, which was like some just generic like Vietnam War movie that came out in the 2000s. And I remember that like, a movie like that will make a point to stop along the way and make the war checklist of like, here's the scene where you see a guy affected by a chemical weapon. Here's the scene where a guy has to like cut his own face off. Here's the scene where like, but in this, or here's the scene where like, oh, I've been scratching myself all over because I got all these bites all over me, but then like no one else is doing it at all throughout the movie, you know? Like,
right.
But you just have it happening and you can just observe it. Then it's like you get to get hit. First of all, you feel smart because you're like, whoa, I noticed this thing that was subtle. And then the movie seems smart because it didn't beat you over the head with it. And then also you now understand two different things about how shit war is at the same time, because the characters are talking about being hungry while exhibiting the quality of being itchy. Right. You know.
So while I'm praising small details, there was another sound design issue. And again, because this is the sub, this obviously was like Ghibli's decision. when he's playing the organ and the aunt comes, by the way, this is like even 17 times pettier to bring up than even the girl crying loop was. He's playing the organ and the aunt shows up and interrupts them, and his key just stops all at once as if the sound file was cut off, not as if his fingers were lifted off of the key. And then it turns around to see his hand again, and his hand, I'm pretty sure, is still pressing on the key, even though the tone stopped like 30 seconds ago. All I'm saying is I'm pretty sure Miyazaki wouldn't have let that slip. The only other nitpick I have, I'd note that at the 50-minute, 10-second mark, a character, Setsuko, just sort of pops into existence. Okay, I don't even remember that one. But then also, there's like a directorial flub, IMHO, where like a plane shows up and starts shooting, you know what I'm talking about? And he jumps into the field, and that's when he decides to start stealing vegetables. And basically, the way that the plane shows up, it shows up via a scene transition. So you have to sort of absorb the fact that there's a plane now, and then you have to realize we have not cut away to any new characters. We're still following the main guy and girl. We haven't transitioned to anything.
I didn't know even really where they were at all. Like, I assumed they were just walking down the road some more, but it was a very weird transition.
If it had been just like a panning shot of them walking on the road to the right, and then you hear a plane sound effect going off, and maybe you hear a couple of bullets, and then you cut to the plane, that would have been like, I think, the effect they were going for. And that's it. Those are the only
what's weird
mistakes
though?
I found.
Fucking, did that happen? Did like single biplanes fly over the whole of Japan just shooting random people?
I mean, I guess it happened some.
Because like surely a small it would either be in a squad or it would be a mission. It wouldn't just be like, I'm just gonna go quickly just drive over Japan a bit, fuck them up, come back. I don't know. I mean, I don't know war.
It was probably
I don't know
done
that
for
war.
like purposes of terror, if you know what I mean. Like it was like, oh man, random people will die. Fucking surrender. Holy shit, goddamn, right?
Could be. I feel like I've seen like, in fact, I think in Barefoot Again, there's a scene where like a kid gets shot down by a chopper like that.
They reference the fact that the other day a girl got randomly shot by a plane, right? So I'm pretty sure I don't think. I know it'd be weird to say this, but I'm pretty sure the tactics of the U.S. government at the time was to implement terror to get Japan to surrender. That was basically what the bombs were for.
No.
The thing I'm just thinking of is that it reminds me of that classic scene from that Hitchcock film, or maybe it wasn't a Hitchcock film.
Shit,
you know, the one where the guy's running away from the plane.
Yeah.
But that's like an assassin or something.
Yeah, that was the Hitchcock. Yeah, North by Northwest, I think.
I realized I'd started going through this note earlier, and then I got distracted about the part where they're at the beach. That like they're playing in the beach for a while, and then they see a corpse, and the brother says like, "Don't look at that." And then, like, right after that, it launches into kind of like a fantasy remembering sequence of, like, what the beach was like when they were with their mom. And, like, just showing you, like, even though they are enjoying a happy time at the beach right now, here's how much better it was supposed to be. Like, here's the promise of happy times they used to have. And, like, compare that to now where it's, like, the two of them and she's all covered in fucking shit and there's dead bodies on the beach and it's, like...
Yeah, it's literally just, dead body. Yeah,
but they have to just, like... They're trying to ignore it because they're just, like, enjoy this moment because, like, we're here at the beach. We're here to have fun. Just don't think about it. Like, it's too much. It's overwhelming to think about. So I thought that was a cool... Even though the reason I got distracted was I was complaining about how long that scene was, but in spite of that, I liked the way the scene ended. This whole movie is full of these ultra edgy juxtapositions, these moments where it's like really shocking thing in beautiful, brightly lit area, like little girl dying in a gorgeous field. And,
I don't know whether I would classify that sort of thing as edgy. I mean, I guess the juxtaposition is like you could say, but like I just like seeing like bad things happening in a brightly lit environment because I don't see that often.
Yeah,
it's cool because it gives it some historicity that like it's not as dramatized because it looks like something that would have actually happened. Like people don't always die at night.
For those of you with your every video featuring Digibro bingo cards, check off Mr. B-Tongue reference.
Oh yeah, did he invent that word?
No, but he referenced it. I don't know. You may have heard it from somewhere else, but I haven't.
Anyway, so my favorite scene by the way, is when they are at the end of their rope and they have become stone cold. And, like, the girl drops the, like, potato or whatever that she had stolen. The cop goes to grab it, and the kid just walks by, grabs it, and keeps going. I was just like, damn! Stone cold! Y'all know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I do know what you're
I know
talking about.
the
That is pretty
scene.
good, yeah.
I didn't quite understand. Like,
They were just like, are we going to get in trouble about this? Or da, da, da?
I
Yeah.
think that his mentality was, like this guy might have been trying to help or might not, but he was just like, we need to get out of here, but like we're not giving up a single thing. Like the reason I loved that scene because he reaches down to grab it before the cop, because there was a chance the cop would not have given it back to him and he was not willing to let that happen. So he had to like grab it as fast as possible, and then he just fucking walks and he's like, you know, like, I mean, maybe the cop was going to stop him, but he was not about to let that chance, you know, come up.
Right.
But
yeah, I couldn't tell whether the policeman was going to be nice or not, because like the last policeman we had seen was a nice policeman.
yeah.
Right.
He'd stopped the boy from being abused by the farmer.
Right.
So I have written down that what they eventually become is like this far-flung libertarian ideal, but the world can't support them because it has grown to be basically like just a bunch of individual communistic cliques. Like, that is seemingly what society becomes in this period, where it's like everyone just sticks to their own. They like try to distribute as much as they can, and it's like, if you don't have a place, if you're not a part of a clique, if you're not a part of a community, you are fucked. You know, and these kids have, unless they go back to their aunt, they have a chance of being in a community, but otherwise they are fucked.
I'm actually, yeah, this movie and then also this conversation is making me very interested in what like immediate post-war Japan was like.
Yeah, this last note I have is just about the way that this boy fails and why I think he ends up like fucking up so badly in the end, which is that like, his identity is crumbling apart around him, and he has this scene where he like remembers his dad's like, you know, ceremony and like all the beautiful ostentatiousness of it, but they've already gotten to a point where it's just like him and his sister, you know, and there's a moment where he like rolls over to hug her. Right. And it's like the first moment where he requires her for comfort. Like, he can't deal with these memories and thoughts that like he's being confronted with the fact that this was all fake. Like, it's starting to seep in for him that the things he has seen are not going to be the future, you know? But like, he needs comfort from that, but the sister's just like, get off me, you know? Because she's just a little kid and she can't really support him. And like, I think he needed like, this kid is at that point, we see that like he can't take care of himself. Like, he needs support. He's unraveling. He doesn't know what to do. But like, the only person in his life is a fucking 5-year-old girl, you know, like, or possibly younger. I don't know how old she's supposed to be. But like, so, you know, she can't help him. He's starting to unravel. And then the moment when he finds out that the sister knew that the mom was dead all along, that was when I think he knew he had fucked up. Because, like, all this time he was projecting onto her that, like, she won't be able to handle that. She won't be able to handle knowing that mom died.
Yeah.
Because he thinks that, again, with the kimono scene, he probably has it in his head that, like, you know, because of that, she can't handle her mother's death. But it wasn't really about that in the first place. And, like, when he finds out that she knew all along and she is not even... that didn't affect her ability to live this life at all. And I think in that moment and he bursts out crying because he realizes it was me who couldn't deal with mom being dead. It was me who didn't want to face this, who didn't want to admit the truth, who didn't want to go back. But at this point, like, she's already sick and dying. He's already like, you know, he's already reached the point where all elements of his identity other than his little sister are gone. There's nothing left for him in the world. She's the only sense of purpose he really has left.
He's not able to accept this new reality, basically, so that's why they dwindle out. And he's then scorned. His corpse is scorned by people walking around being like, yeah, all these Americans we're going to begrudgingly accept.
So yeah, after I just have a last note, after finding out about his father's death, his sister becomes the only remaining sense of purpose in his life, and since he has no idea how to help her, his mind unravels, and without her, he just can't go on. Like, I'm pretty sure he dies less from malnutrition per se, and more because after she's gone, what is there for him? You know,
right.
Like,
this whole family has failed. They're all dead now. They're completely extinct. They'll never be remembered.
His promise of like, being like his dad is like, well, we didn't win the war. There's no reason to become a soldier anymore. Everything's fucked.
I don't know if this was after World War II, but eventually Japan does not have a military. They have the self-defense force, but they do not have, like, part of the, like, peace agreement was they're not even allowed to have a military. So, like, that's where they've been since, I don't know if that was from World War II, though. I fucking don't know history well enough. But, like, so, yeah, that identity is literally beyond gone. Like, there is not even a possibility of becoming that person who his dad was.
Well, the only thing I have left to say is that the whole thing with, I mean, I guess I mentioned it earlier with the nukes, like, the impact of a nuke. I mean, I haven't seen that movie, the other one, the Barefoot Boy. Like, I don't, that has a nuke in it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That has the thing. I feel like maybe it works in that, but in this, the impact of a nuke, I had like a thought that it's such a huge thing that you could barely comprehend the things it would do to people.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't show it in this movie. They don't really even reference it, I don't think.
They don't reference it. No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like the war's lost. Yeah, we lost. And it's mostly just about, like, the minute things about, like, you need medicine to get your sister to not die, and you need food. Like, it's really just like the lowest level of, like, the furthest removed from, like, the actual conflict, but it's still as sad. Like, a burning building, your house burning down is much more, like, relatable and impactful than a nuke going off and destroying your whole city. It's just sort of something you can't really comprehend unless you're Japanese and you've kind of know more about it from people.
Yeah.
This movie, to break down exactly why I think it reminds me so much of The Wall specifically, is that both of them are almost aggressive, like, towards blaming society for this problem. That, like, with Barefoot Gen, that movie, there is an element of, like, blaming the Japanese government for this happening. Like, the dad, like, says that early in the movie, that, like, oh, this is their fault for, like, doing this foolish war. But, like, mostly it's just the fallout. It's just, here's the atrocity that happened. This movie is like, here's how our entire society was built wrongly, and that fucked these kids. Like, this isn't even really a movie about, like, how America fucked Japan. This is a movie about how, America fucking Japan was possible because of also Japan fucking Japan, having already happened. Their society was already broken, that the mentality of the generation coming up was one that was, ultimately going to not even exist anymore. Just, like, they were gonna hard reset their whole culture after this, and, like, they regret how they were in World War II and beforehand. Like, obviously the way that they rebuilt their society was to be as far from what they had been as possible. So, like, the fact that this kid represents, in a way, like, that dead ideal is, like, simultaneously we're mourning the passing of this entire generation, but also it's like, this had to happen. Like, if this kid had grown up, what was he gonna do? Fight in the military and die in a pointless war? Like, Japan had already fucked this kid's future before he, died in a firebombing. And I think this movie wants to paint it that way, as, like, everyone fucked up. Everyone fucked up. The world fucked up. That's why kids die. And that's always why kids die.
It's always why kids die.
Yeah. Anyway, on that fucking jolly note, we end the Great with the Fireflies podcast. Well, what are your parting thoughts? Because I quite enjoyed this movie, seeing it again. Hippo wrote 10 out of 10 in his notes.
I'll give it 10 dead kids out of 10.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh, I don't know.
No, wait. I'll give it 100 Fireflies out of 100.
Yeah,
because it's a nice thing. It's nice to look at the misfortune of other Japanese people.
I really did rate it kind of low. My thought really was just whatever I got out of this, I got out of Barefoot Gen stronger. But you have outlined a whole lot more to get out of it. I'll wait until I rewatch it, I guess, though. So yeah, very interesting. but
I definitely
think
felt more
it's my
strongly
least
about it the
favorite-
more I
yeah.
watched it and the more I like recognized those themes coming up again and
Right.
again. Like the movie does get more like image driven as it goes on, more like more laying into the metaphors and the themes than even in the early part. So yeah,
Right.
I enjoyed it more as it went.
All right. So what movie's fucking next?
My Neighbor Totoro, which was actually
Excellent.
released as a double feature with Grave of the Fireflies. So yeah,
Lol.
it was released on the same day.
What a combo.
I know, right? Supposedly, I want to address a comment we had on the last episode from Ukrainian Zagak, who said that the reason for that is that Totoro was seen as like a financial risk, and so they packaged it with Takahata's movie because that was more guaranteed to be a success, since Takahata was a household name before Miyazaki was in Japan. And also he said that Laputa and Nazca were not necessarily like huge successes when they first came out. They were more like niche successes. Laputa, though, has gone on to be like more of a normie movie, but I think that has to do with like lots of TV reruns. I think it's like a Shawshank Redemption kind of thing, where like,
I see,
the
yeah.
movie was beloved when it came out, but like now it's considered one of the greatest movies of all time.
That's
And-
the way I was fucking putting it in the last episode. Is it's one of those like put on and watch movies because it's got that pulp atmosphere. It's one of those
Definitely
like,
seen it like multiple times on TV.
yeah. It's
so
a
I think
great
that has a
movie
lot
to
to
be
do
on
with it.
TV. It fits the fucking format well.
And we didn't even mention in that last podcast something I wanted to bring up, that like the movie airs on like some holiday every year in Japan, and the most tweets that have ever been sent at the same time was during the movie Laputa like showing on TV, because there's like a meme where everyone tweets the line, the word of destruction when it happens in the movie.
Shit.
And it was like 70,000 tweets at the same time or something like that. It was like a huge number. And yeah. So Laputa,
That's
it
great.
still pulls numbers on TV in Japan, and great Twitter memes. But anyway, yeah, we're watching My Neighbor Totoro next, which I really love. I'm looking forward to it. So
Yeah.
see you next week.
It's been a
Or
very
whatever.
long time since I've watched that.
All right.
I think I've only watched it once.